Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ryan or Robert Bite, and today I'm here to talk about Trigun. Trigun has always been one of my favorite series of all time. I remember watching it in the early 2000s on Adult Swim, and I just remember having such a wonderful time watching it, and ever since then, every rewatch I've had just as much of an amazing time as I had the first time. Last year I completed my manga collection of the series, and this year with the new deluxes coming out, I figured it was just as good a time as any to actually read the story and get the full experience of Trigun. Trigun is a great series. I just started reading it, and I think that you should too. In the very beginning of the story, we get a bunch of different short stories that kind of show us who the characters are, get us introduced to the world. I think it's a great way of just establishing what we're getting ourselves into. I think Trigun has close to what I would define as a perfect chapter that you can get. I think it showcases Vash's pacifism, his humorous side, and also, for lack of a better term, his intelligence. The pacifism really comes out when you realize that Vash could have overpowered these bounty hunters with the flick of his wrist, but instead of treating them like ants, he actually plays along with their schemes. The humorous side of Vash comes out in this chapter as well. Moments like when he puts his arms around the bounty hunters, or he talks about going after the Mayflower known as love. And the part I was mentioning about intelligence, that comes out when the bounty hunters try to finally shoot him and they just hear clicks from their guns, realizing that they've all dumped all of their ammo out all over the floor. They ask Vash how does he know that they weren't going to be able to shoot him, to which his reply is, oh, I just counted the bullets. I mean, yeah, like 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there as a reader like, wait a minute. So you were dodging the bullets, ducking behind stuff, putting your arms around them. You were doing all of this stuff, and simultaneously you were able to count every single shell that were coming out of automatic weapons? Your brain has to be on a different level from the rest of us. Seriously, like, what is this nigga? That's a story for a different day. I could talk on and on all day about this first chapter. I just think it's a great way, as I was saying, to just introduce us to No Man's Land. Yeah, that's what this place is called. It does a great job at introducing us to No Man's Land, but also introducing us to the characters in Trigun. Vash especially. Another thing that I absolutely love about Trigun is that it's just simply good storytelling. There's a story that's in the anime, but it's also in the manga that I'd like to highlight. I love it in both iterations, but it really struck me in the manga. Two elderly people have land within this desert that has grass and trees, and it almost looks like a hidden oasis or a utopia or something within this otherwise dreary world. These elderly people have a son who is basically hooking up with bandits that want to force his parents off of the land. He doesn't understand why his parents are opposed to giving up the land. And to be perfectly honest, I kind of get the impression that he's a little stupid. Not gonna lie. I mean, literally you live on an oasis within a desert, but you're like, yeah, I want to go hang out with the bandits. And I get it. He wants to do hood rat stuff with his friends. Got it. Throughout the story, he keeps trying to get his parents to relinquish the land, but they just aren't having it. To skip over just a massive chunk of the story, it basically ends in them having to tell their son, the reason we were keeping the land is so that you could have an inheritance. You are our child, we love you no matter what choices you've made in your life, and we want to leave you something. And in this particular case, leave you something that literally no one on the planet seems to have. And I'm gonna be honest, when I first read through this part of the story, I was like, oh man, you know, that's a really cool story. Like, that was cool. I like that. But I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I remembered in the beginning of the story, Millie was writing letters to her family, and then the topic came up for Meryl to write a letter to her family, to which it seemed like she felt a way about doing that. This plot thread comes all the way back around at the end of the story, and there's a lesson that's actually presented to Meryl that convinces her to send a letter to her parents. If that's not good storytelling, I don't know what is. When I went back and I realized that that's what was happening the whole time, I was like, man, quit playing. Quit playing. Stop it. I'm probably putting a little sauce on it, probably putting a little spice on it, but that legitimately was a moment that stuck out to me, and I was like, wow, I really like this. Later in the story, we're introduced to Nicholas D. Wolfwood. He's a traveling priest that carries around a massive cross that is full of mercy. I'm sure there's mercy in there. There's a lot of bullets, but I'm sure there's mercy in there too. Wolfwood is one of my favorite characters within the series, and one of my favorite ways that he's utilized as a character is the fact that he has an opposing philosophy to Vash. I like to call Vash a greedy pacifist. Stay with me here. I feel like Vash doesn't want anyone to get hurt, whether they be a hero, villain, friend, foe, whoever it is, size, race, religion, whatever you are, Vash wants no harm to come to you. Wolfwood, on the other hand, has a philosophy of, yes, I'd like a peaceful world as well, but at the end of the day, there are situations where you just can't avoid harming someone. And to be honest, as much as I love Vash, I kind of feel Wolfwood. I kind of feel him. I like the fact that their philosophies differ, but they're not like opposite philosophies. I think they just have different ways in how they want to obtain the peaceful world that they both desire. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have been an anime-only Trigun fan basically my entire life. This is my first time ever experiencing the manga, and I just want to say, there are a massive amount of differences. I remember being on a Discord call with one of my friends as I was reading, and I just remember going, oh my god, my brain is exploding. Yeah, this manga blew my mind. Everything I thought I knew about Trigun, throw it out the window. I mean, by the second chapter of the second volume, Vash has already met the Gung-Ho Guns. And I'm pretty sure in the anime this took place, I want to say maybe around like the midpoint. Another thing I'd like to mention is there's moments obviously from the anime that I see within the manga, but there is a point where I tell you, my brain almost exploded, totally veered off from the direction that the anime was going in. And by the time that happened, I had so many questions about these moments. One interesting thing that came up from these differences between the manga and the anime is the fact that I kind of feel like I don't completely know who Vash and Knives are as people anymore. I feel like I had an idea of who they were before this, but now I feel like I'm being tossed into murky waters or something. I don't even know if that was a good way to describe that, but I'm sure you get what I'm saying. I would say the biggest things that I can see that are still similar between the anime and the manga is the fact that Vash is a pacifist and does not want to see people hurt. Knives is completely and utterly against humanity. He wants us all dead. He wants us wiped off the face of the earth. He hates us. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about how hype I was when Vash starts fighting the Gung-Ho Guns and people start mentioning Knives. Every time Knives' name gets mentioned in Vash's presence, he gets the most eerie looks I've ever seen, and they make me so hype. I'm sorry. I gotta calm down. Another thing I'm interested to see in this manga is if we really get a full explanation for why Knives feels the way he feels. We know he outright hates humanity, but I'm really interested to see why. What things led to him feeling this way about us? Because in the anime, I feel like he kind of came off as being evil for just evil's sake. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out in the manga. And I could sit here and talk for the rest of the night about my questions in terms of Knives' new body and just that old plot line that was brought up within the series. I don't know what's going on, but that was definitely the part where the plot started to veer off from the anime, and I'm like, Naito, what are you doing? What are you doing? Whatever you're doing, I like it. If you made it this far, I'd just like to say thank you for making it through my first video. I'm sure it was all over the place. I was kind of just taking random notes as I was reading the series, and I just got so hyped that I was like, you know what? Forget finishing the series and reviewing it immediately. I want to get my first thoughts out right now. I'm on fire! Like I stated earlier, I read the first 2 big volumes, and I also read the first volume of Maximum. I had a really fun time the whole way. I can't wait to get to the rest. That's probably the first thing I'm going to do as soon as I cut the camera off. But I just wanted to share my love and my enjoyment of Trigun, and like I said, I know the deluxes are coming out. Hopefully this will introduce a whole new generation of people to the story of Trigun, something I've loved since I was a little kid. Somehow if you stumble upon this video, please let me know in the comments, did you enjoy the video? Do you like Trigun? Have you read it? Have you only watched it? Are you planning on getting the deluxes? There's so many things to talk about when it comes to this series. Once again, I just want to thank you for watching. My name is Ryan or Riberbite, signing off.